This is the second video in the series on biological molecules. The focus of this one is going to be on carbon molecules and carbon compounds and how that forms the basis for a lot of what goes on in biology. In the first one, the focus was on water. Now I'm going to mention a couple of things about water in this one, which will actually add to that list that I generated for you of the importance of water to organisms. I go like this because that's where the list was. And if you missed that list, I'll provide a link back to that first video and you can have a look at it. Before we get into carbon and that sort of thing, though, I want to ask you one question, and I'll actually answer this question at the end of this video. The question is, and it's based on the water molecule, and it comes from the hydrogen bonding in the water molecule. The question is, why does ice float? Now I'll just leave that one with you. And I want to get back into the topic here, and organic and inorganic. Now, in a simple sense, organic compounds are carbon-based compounds. That's in a simple sense, and that's where we're going to start with this. Inorganic compounds are not carbon-based, although there are carbon in some inorganic compounds, but these are carbon-based compounds. And we'll start with the carbon atom. The carbon atom has 4 bonding electrons, 4 electrons in its outer shell, and that allows it to bond to a huge number of other types of atoms. And it can actually bond to itself. So if we do that, we look at that, if we take a second carbon atom, there's the second carbon atom's electron, you can see there it is. This could be written like this. Remember from the other video, carbon to carbon bond like that. And there's a possibility of another bond forming here and here and here, 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 and here. If these other spots are filled up with hydrogen, which is the smallest thing you can actually get, we would have something like this. I'll just use dots for carbon's atoms, and I'll put little X's for hydrogen atoms, electrons. We actually can put 4 hydrogens around 1 carbon. Now the bonding requirements are all satisfied. There's 8 electrons in the bonding orbital for carbon, and hydrogen, which is the smallest atom possible, it has a full shell at 2 electrons, so it has the use of 2. So we've got this thing here, which is CH4, which is methane. That's exactly what methane is. Now this one here, where I put 2 carbons together like this, and if we filled that up with hydrogen, we'd have, well, we can use the little lines for bonds instead of drawing dots all the time. We have hydrogen, 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 hydrogen. That's an organic molecule. It's a carbon-based compound. This is not methane, it's actually ethane. Now I want you to notice one more thing. Carbon has 4 bonds. This carbon has 4 bonds. Hydrogen has 1 bond, and it's satisfied like that. And over here in the corner, I'm going to put carbon always has 4 bonds. Hydrogen has 1, but I'm just going to go in a little different sequence here. Nitrogen, which we're going to get to coming up, maybe not in this video, in another one for certain, we'll get to it, has 3 bonds. Oxygen has 2 bonds. Hydrogen has 1 bond. So remember that, that's an important thing. So when we're looking at organic molecules, if you look at the number of bonds, you say, oh yeah, that one's stable, that one exists, that one's got a flaw in it, that sort of thing. So we can do this, we can keep going actually. I mean, carbon, carbon, we could add another carbon in here. And more hydrogen. That's propane when you get 3 carbons in a row like that. That's organic molecules. Now, what I said at the beginning is that to say that organic molecules are carbon-based molecules, that's a bit of an oversimplification. What it really is, organic, is the association with carbon and hydrogen that's important in organisms. Because look at this. Here we've got this. Organic or inorganic? It's covalently bonded together, which organic molecules are, but this is not organic. This is inorganic. It's got carbon in it, but it doesn't have the hydrogen. So it's the association with carbon and the hydrogen that makes it an organic molecule. That's an important thing to know. Now there's other atoms besides C, N, O, and H which show up in organic molecules. We also have phosphorus. We have sulfur. Sulfur has 2 bonds. Phosphorus typically has 5 bonds, and so on like that. So you will see some of these things as well. But these are the ones that we're going to actually use the most. With this as an understanding of what organic molecules are like, we can actually take the organic molecules and the biological molecules which form the other videos in this series, and we can put them into 4 categories. We have, I'm just going to erase this, we don't need it right now. We have carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. These are all organic molecules, all very important in biology. Energy source, stored energy and insulation. These are for muscles and enzymes and hormones, and this is the DNA and RNA. So all these molecules, they're all great big molecules made out of things that start with carbon. That's the topic we have to move to here, is how do you get these? What do they look like? So I'm going to take this space here and tell you that carbohydrates are typically made out of smaller pieces. So if we look at it this way, if these are smaller molecules, and we take these smaller molecules and we combine them together, we can wind up with a bigger molecule. What have I got here? I've got 6 pieces. So we bond them all together, something like that. This could be a carbohydrate, something like starch, or it could be a protein, maybe insulin, but insulin has 51 of these pieces, not 6 pieces. But all of these things, nucleic acids, are made out of millions of these pieces. All of these kinds of big organic molecules in organisms are made out of either monomers, like this. This is what it's called. These are single pieces, monomers, or polymers. The monomers, you combine them together and you make polymers. So you can add them together and you get polymers. You take them apart and you get monomers. Now I said I was going to mention water a couple more times. I mentioned it once already, but in this we have, every time you take monomers and you combine them together, we get water as a product, byproduct. Every time you take the polymers and make monomers out of them, water has to be added into the system. For example, if you're going to take a carbohydrate and your digestive system is going to digest it, if this is starch, for example, you need water to break the starch molecule down into simple sugar molecules like this. And that's what I can mention here. If we've got carbohydrates, I can get rid of this now. So there's 2 different reactions here. The reaction where the polymers are broken down into monomers, this is called a hydrolysis reaction. This reaction is, because water is being given away, it's called a dehydration reaction, or dehydration synthesis, because we're synthesizing larger molecules and dehydrating at the same time. It's also called a condensation reaction. Water's being given off. So we have hydrolysis and condensation. One of the very important roles of water in our body. Every time we make polymers, if we're taking sugar molecules and combining them together to make glycogen, which is stored in our livers, we're doing this. Water is a product. We have to have a way to deal with the water. Water is in our blood. Water is an ingredient here. It's used in our digestive system throughout. So water, in addition, like I said, to those 6 things from the other video, water is a very important molecule in our systems for this reason as well. And that sort of wraps up this topic. The next video is all about carbohydrates and then so on down the list. So I don't want to get into the details of these ones right now, but I will go back and mention why water, when it's frozen, floats. Why does ice float? It has to do, and I cleared this space over here, it has to do with the hydrogen bonding between the water molecules. Remember, water looks like this. And if it's hydrogen bonded to another water molecule, we might have it this, and this is the hydrogen bond formed because of the opposite dipoles and the hydrogen and the oxygen. What happens when this system of water is cooling down is these hydrogen bonds become a little bit more stable, they're less broken, the molecules actually get a little bit closer together, a little bit closer together, a little bit closer together. So if we're looking at the surface of a lake, for example, it's 20 degrees, and then it's 18 degrees, and then it's 16 degrees. What's happening in here is the water molecules are actually getting a little bit closer together. So the water is increasing density as the temperature goes down. Increasing density means the water is going to sink. Colder water sinks. Except something very strange happens, very unique happens at 4 degrees Celsius apart. So water is most dense at 4 degrees. That's as close as they can get together. If the water continues to cool down, so 3, 2, 1, 0, when it's frozen, you get that crystalline lattice set up. And when the crystalline lattice is set up, the molecules are held a little bit further apart from each other. If it's further apart, it's less dense, ice floats. Okay? Thank you very much.